I believe that if we're going to deal with the issue of illegal immigration, we also have to deal with the companies that employ them. If we're dealing with the issue of immigration in general, meaning that we want to find out which company is hiring more immigrants than South Africans, we can't just throw information out there. We need to investigate and find out the truth and get to the bottom of it. Because if you're going to deal with the issue of illegal immigration or immigration in general in South Africa, we need to get information that can be verified and then we can publicize that information knowing that the information is true. For example, a lot of people have this um, belief that a lot of our higher education institutions are hiring a lot of lecturers, head of departments, dean of departments that are immigrants, and they're giving immigrants or foreigners preference over South Africans. That information has to be published, and that information has to become public knowledge so that we can have information that is verified. And then when people are throwing comments out there, they are based on real facts because you could be 100% right or 100% wrong. So we need to investigate what is going on. If we're going to get to the bottom of the situation, over and above marching, we need to get to the bottom of it. For example, I watched this march. It's a big, big protest march in Togoza. So it this morning. I think it happened yesterday. Yesterday being Thursday, and they were going to the industrial area, going from company to company, demanding that they hire South Africans. But we need to get the information first, because you could be approaching a company that has got 100% South African employees, and you could be talking to a company that has got nothing to do with encouraging employment of foreigners. So I've made a list here that we have to start working on so we can get information about what the hell is going on. If we want to deal with the issue of unemployment and crime, we need to understand, are these companies breaking labor laws? Are these companies breaking immigration laws? Are they complying? And I'm talking about JSE listed companies. So the companies that I'll be mentioning here are are the companies that are listed on the JSE, meaning that they are public companies. They have to provide information to the public about their employees. So let's start with this information. So the first one is government departments. So we need to understand, number one, from these governments, for example, the health department in South Africa, we need to understand how many positions are held by immigrants and how many positions are held by South Africans, because we cannot just talk about information without verifying it. So if these are departments of government, I'm talking about national departments, they are obliged to publish this information so that we know what is going on. The same way that you can demand a department of government to publish people that are doing business with the government so we can know what is going on. So, for example, the Department of Health, the Department of Education, in the form of Department of Higher Education, we will ask the Department of Higher Education to provide us with a list of employees they have working at our higher education institutions, and they can give us a list of foreigners and a list of South Africans, so we can make up our own minds. For example, the Department of Police. If we can get information from the Department of Police and understand the crime statistics in detail, how many crimes have been committed by immigrants and how many crimes are committed by South Africans, and which crimes are we talking about, so that when people are talking about information, it's information they can access. When you talk about the Department of Social Development, the SASA department, with a very, very dodgy minister, by the way, we need to understand how many South Africans are getting SASA and how many immigrants are getting SASA, so that we can put this situation to bed, so that when people are talking about information or protesting about it, there's information to back it up. And if they've been protesting about information, that information is false, then they've got the information. So I'm talking about government departments, including SOEs. We need to understand how many immigrants are working in our SOEs and versus South Africans. Chapter 9 institutions, we're talking about South African Human Rights Commission, SARS. We need to understand and know and have this information made public. How many South Africans are employed and how many foreigners are employed. So people can make up their own minds. This information has to be public because it's a government department. Second, industry, banking. So we're talking about Standard Bank, Absa, Capitec, FNB, and Nedbank, or any other bank that is listed on the JSE. What we want is to get information from them about their list of employment. Who is South African against who is a foreigner. And all we're trying to do is to understand where these problems are coming from. We are trying to bury the concept of people just making assumptions. We need to get information from these companies so that if we find out that it looks unfair that on their list of employees there's more immigrants than South Africans, then we can talk about it. We can say, okay, guys, it looks like in this Department of Finance, you've got out of 100 employees, you've got 60 foreigners and 40 South Africans. What the hell is going on? And once you understand what is going on, then what can we do to solve it? Because we have millions and millions of South Africans that are unemployed. If you find that one company has hired more foreigners than South Africans, we need to deal with the situation. We cannot run away from it. If we're going to get to the bottom of the unemployment problem in South Africa connected to illegal immigration, we need to get the facts so that if somebody had some sort of belief before, they can look at the data and make up their minds. So that was banking. The third one is food retail. I'm talking about ShopRite, which is also Checkers 6060, Spar, Boxer, and Woolworths Holdings, Pick and Pay. These are JSE listed companies. We can ask them to publish this information. We need to understand who they are employing, why they're employing those people, if they happen to be more foreigners than South Africans. We need to get to the bottom of it. You cannot say South Africans are unemployable, but you're not giving us the criteria. You need to come up with a system that can allow them to be employable. The third one is the restaurant business. This is a hot one. Restaurants. I'm talking about Spur Corporation and Famous Brands. Sorry. So these are the biggest restaurant chains. Spur, for example, they own the Spur, Panarottis, John Dory's, Rocco Mamas, famous brands, the Steers, Debonair's, Wimpy, Mug and Bean, Fisherways, Milky Lane. These are really big businesses in South Africa. And these companies, I might be wrong on some, these companies make billions in profits every year. We need to get information from them about who are they employing, how many are South Africans and how many are foreign nationals. And once we get that information, we can have a way forward to say, guys, this looks a bit one-sided. What is going on? We have millions of young people that are not working. Then why do you insist on hiring foreign nationals? Or if there's no problem, then we just carry on and we know that the information is verified and it's nothing to talk about. I'll give you an example why this information will be important. When I finished matric in 98, in 1999, my very first job as a fresh matriculant, I worked at the Jet stores in Midrand at the Boulders before the ANC and all illegal immigrants ruined it. The Boulders was a very, very nice mall. It had Mike's Kitchen. It was beautiful. I worked at Jet in 1999, earning 8 rand an hour. Streetwise 2 at the time was 9 rand 99. So I could work for about an hour or so and I can afford myself some Streetwise 2 lunch. These industries, these retail industries that you see at the malls, are supposed to be a stepping stone for somebody who is studying, finishing matric, or just of working age. You know, you got your ID, you finish matric, you're taking a gap year, then you're able to work at these places and make yourself extra money and also gain some sort of workplace environment. We need to get to the bottom of it so we can understand what is going on, because it's very easy to spread information about one company or the other. And it's in the best interest of these companies to publish this information so that if there's any negative perception about them, it can be put to bed. So I've got government, I've got banking, I've got food retail, I've got restaurants, and I'm gonna get to the one, two, three, four, fifth one, clothing retail companies. So the main ones that are listed on the JSE, the first one is Pepco. They own Pep, Ackermans, Take It Town, Legit, Dance, Hi-Fi Corp, Russell's, Breadlaws, Rochester. It's quite a lot. OK Furniture as well. We need to know what the hell is going on. How many South Africans have you hired? And if you've hired more foreigners than South Africans, we need to understand why and what we can do to sort it out. We need to get to the bottom. We cannot just talk past each other. We need to get data and analyze that data and come up with the way forward. The second one is Foschini Group. They've got Foschini, Exact, Jet, Relay, Jeans, Sports Scene, Total Sports. I mean, these are our brands that we see at the mall every day. American Suez, Stearns, Cody Craft, Dial-A-Bed. The list actually goes on and on. We need to get to the bottom of the employment situation. We need to get data And then once we get the data, we'll have a way forward about that. The third one is Mr. Price Group. So they own Mr. Price, Studio 88, Miladies or My Ladies. So these are the companies that we see every day at shopping centers. We see them every day at malls. We need to get to the bottom of what is the employment map looking like? Who have they employed? And what we can do about it to fix it if it's something that needs to be fixed. For example, if I go back to the government departments, we need to get to the bottom of it. We cannot have a situation in our country where all our higher education institutions, VETs, UJ, University of Pretoria, everybody who is a dean or a lecturer is some sort of immigrant coming from another country, while we have our own South African people with PhDs that qualify to be deans of departments and are overlooked. I think there is the last group. This last group is pharmacies. So we're talking about Clicks and Discount. These are JSE listed companies. The only companies that you see here are publicly trading, meaning that they should be able to provide information to the public about who they've employed and why they've employed those people. Clicks and Discount. So once we can get to the bottom of the information, we'll be able to achieve a couple of things. While one, we can dismiss any form of negative perception about who they're hiring, who they're working with. Number two, we can make sure that while we are dealing with the issue of illegal immigration in this country and lawlessness, we can hold these companies accountable also to make sure that they're not breaking our labor laws and they're not breaking our immigration laws. And then if they are found to be breaking those laws, we'll give them an opportunity to rectify it and be able to monitor them, because our young people need some sort of employment. If we find that a company is hiring more immigrants than South Africans, that's a problem. We cannot deal with that situation. So that is my information for the day. I just thought about this because I was looking at the march in Togoza. Please search it if you can. There's a march for unemployment in Togoza, and it is huge. It's like a cloud, like it's like a whole wave of people. And it made me think about a situation where they're approaching industrial areas, industrial companies, and knocking on their doors. And but then we can have another way to do it. I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong, but we can have another way of doing it where we start with the big companies that are listed on the JSE and we can demand information from them. And once we get that information, we can find a way to say, why do we have this problem? Why does it exist? What can we do to get rid of it and create more employment for South Africans? Anyway, that is my input for the day. Until then, stay safe.